Hello, everybody. I'm Steve West. I'm with Project Insight, and today I'm going to show you guys some tips and tricks for using the task list when you're managing your projects. And the task list is one of the key uh, views inside a project that you use every day if you're a project manager. And so there's a lot of nuance to using the task list efficiency. I'm going to go over the basics and then get into some of the other aspects of the task list that you may or may not be aware of. So I think you guys should be seeing my screen right now. Um, there we go. And I'm going to just kind of go into this at the highest level first. When you get to a project plan, this is the default view. This is just the first list of many views in the project plan, and we're going to focus mostly on this today. Now you'll notice in our tool, there's always filters and layouts and more on almost every list. This is really handy for you because in this particular view, you can one of the one of the nice features that we've added in the last year is you can say, I just want to see completed tasks. And you'll note when it's filtered, there's a little yellow box that says this is now being filtered. You can just clear the filter like this. You can also see, obviously there's a lot of different ones here, ones that are assigned to me, ones that are just incomplete. I find myself oftentimes filtering by incomplete or completed, depending on what I'm doing, because if I do incomplete, then I can narrow my task list down. But I'm going to go ahead and just clear everything so you can see it all. Now, another key aspect of the task list in any view in our tool is you can drag and drop your columns to rearrange them. So, and you can also um, move them, make them larger or not larger. Now, when you're moving them, you really do want to grab like right in the middle because you can see there. If I click over here, the cursor changes to now I'm resizing or I'm moving. So you just note you can always note the cursor there. If you do change the layout, or then you want to go back to the default, you can just always use these quick views to say, I just want to go back to the default. You can also right mouse click if you want to insert a new column, choose the column you would like to insert the new one next to, and just mouse over. You'll see the little right mouse click, and you'll see insert. And let's say I want to choose actual hours right here. And then it puts it to the left of the column every time you do that. So you can then, once you have the column, you can always move it around. Many of our columns also have tooltips. If you mouse over them, they'll show you a tooltip. So if you're not sure what a field is, you can always look at the tooltip. Again, I'm just going to go back to the default here. And a couple other things, the more menu, there's a lot of features in here. I can collapse everything, or I can expand everything, or I can collapse, and maybe I just want to expand only the top level items. There's also a couple of other key things in here. Note how I have a new number here, 298, because I added a new task. You can reset the task numbers just by clicking this, and then it'll. What's nice about that is it'll reset everything in order. So if you end up moving things around or adding new tasks, oftentimes you may want to reset. We also have a couple other features in here that I'll go over later in this demo. So another big thing is editing. Uh, this task list is editable. Now, there's always the icon here. You can click this icon to edit, but a trick to editing is if you just double click on the row, it'll bring up the editing. And if I, change the name here, adding the name, uh, then if I want to edit I can actually just double click the next row and it'll commit this row and then go to the next row. So that saves you a lot of time by just double clicking on a row you want to edit to move there. Another thing you may or may not know that you'll see in our tool, these little icons here, that usually means there's something else you can do here. In this case, you can edit, you can see there's a tooltip on it, edit description, and that'll bring up the whole description where I can go ahead and paste in. a screenshot, or I can type in more instructions here. But yeah, the in this editor, you can paste screenshots in here, put hyperlinks in. You can bold it. It's just a basic HTML editor. But we also have an add-on called checklist or task checklist. And so sometimes you may want to actually put in steps. So this is step one, and then step two, step three. This is another way, which has a way to show it. This is another way that you can put detailed instructions into your tasks like this with the checklist. If you don't have the checklist showing, then you'll need to go to the add-ons to get it. Now I just clicked save, and now that description that I added and the checklist is there. I can also just click the OK button if I want to keep editing here. Like maybe I also want to increase the duration of this task or do other things. Another way too to also save is you can right mouse click when you're on the row and hit save. So another common question is, how do I insert a brand new task? If you want to add a task here in between number 4 and 5, mouse over here, right mouse click and say insert. And what's really cool too is, you may not know, there's a way to say, I want to insert a task, or maybe I want to insert a successor. And I'm going to choose that one for this demo here and say insert task successor. What's cool about that is it actually put in the predecessor automatically. So this task will happen after the next. So this will be after perform duration. And I'm going to put it some duration. I'm going to just talk about that for a minute here too. You can see I put 5 days in, and then it calculated 40 hours of effort. There is a setting, and I'm going to show you how to make that. You can change that setting to be a different ratio if you want. I will show that towards the end of this demo, but I want to talk a little bit about duration and effort. So the duration is how long you're giving someone to get something done. And I'm giving this task 5 days, but it's really not 40 hours worth of effort. This task is maybe only going to take someone 4 hours to do, but I'm giving them the whole week to do it. And I think an important thing when you're building project plans, for those of you who are not, who may or maybe new to project management, is it's really kind of, you really don't, unless you have someone's full attention, you really shouldn't give them a 5 day, 40-hour task. If that's the only thing they're going to do in the week, that's fine. But in most businesses these days, that people are juggling all kinds of different things. So it's good to give somebody a lot of time in your plan to do things. Now, note too here as well that this task has 5 days, 40 hours. I'm not going to set the dates here at all, because I want it to be auto calculated from the predecessor task, which is right above it. So this task, by leaving the dates blank, it'll automatically calculate and start on Wednesday. And also, I'm going to pick just myself to do this task. And I'm going to go ahead. Now, from here, I can click OK, or I can hit save. You'll see that on these layers, they give you the choice to say OK or save. OK means I want to edit the row some more. Save means this is the last thing I'm editing here. I'm ready to save it. Now, note this task calculated Tuesday to Wednesday automatically. It's got 5 days of duration to do the work, and it's assigned to Steve West here. So that's how you would insert a new task. If you want to move it now also note, it was task 300 a minute ago. I showed you that you can reset the task numbers. Now you don't need to do this all day long, but you can wait till you're done with all your changes and hit reset, and now it just reordered everything. The numbers are all in there the same as they were before. If I do want to move this down, I can drag it. I can just mouse click down and drag, and then just drop it on the task I want it to come after. So if I want this to end after meet the customer, then it'll be right under meet the customer. If I want to move it back to where it was before, I can just drag it there. It'll always be after the one you drop it on. You can also rearrange into a new summary like this as well. So I moved it there, and now I'm moving it back. Let's say I want to insert a brand new summary here. I can, like between here, I can say insert task, and this is a new summary. And you'll see this funky looking icon here. That's the looks like a tree. That's what that's for. It says if you click it, now it's solid. That means it's going to become a summary. And this is now a new summary task. Now, here's another little trick here is if the summary is open with the arrow down, then any new task underneath the summary will be in the summary. If I want another sibling, I can just go like this now and say this is another summary here, or just a regular task. I can just hit the enter key to convoke the save. Now they're siblings. So if I do this like this, I'll just make this a regular task. I'm not going to, if I click it in here and now I say this is 5 days and it's, 8 hours of work, and I'm just going to hit enter, that'll also commit a save. It, that new task was in the summary there. So that's how you can do your hierarchy. I can also always just go like here and drag it, and it's going to ask me if you drag, I'm going to cancel this. If you drag onto a summary, it's going to ask you, do you want it to be a child or a sibling? If I say sibling, now it actually is out of the summary like this. So in this case, maybe I want this summary under here. If I say add as child, now that's under here. And because it disappeared because this was collapsed, I just opened that back up, and I can just drag this as a child. And then now I've built my hierarchy like this. And you can nest as many tasks as you want under there. If I don't want any of these tasks anymore, I can actually right mouse click, say delete, or I can use the delete over here. It's going to ask me, do you want to delete the summary? Click OK. And because it's a summary, it's going to ask me, do I want to delete the parent only, or do I want to delete everything? If I delete the parent only, it'll leave the children. It'll take one level out. If I delete everything, and then all three tasks are gone. So those are some uh, tips there. Another thing you'll notice is these arrows here. If you see here, this is an arrow. That means there's a constraint. And a constraint can be set by just simply typing in a task with a constraint. You can basically come in here and put T for today. That's a shortcut there. Is that most of these date pickers, you can actually pick the date picker like this, or there's a shortcut keys and if where you can hit the today, and then you can even use the arrow key to go up and down, or there's arrow keys to change the date up and back. So now in this case, I've actually set a start and an end automatically. It's got a little arrow there, and now I have a constraint date. It made a 2-day task, and what you'll notice here is if you click on these, you can actually see what the constraints are. This one is the task is project manager training. It has a start no earlier than, and it has a predecessor. If you want to remove that constraint, you can just click remove like this, and now the constraint is gone, and that little arrow's gone, and that means that the task now um, is being scheduled dynamically. So again, here, if I don't want this constraint anymore, start no earlier than, if I just remove, this is a must start on, I can remove it. That constraint is gone. And now the task can be scheduled. Maybe I want to put a predecessor in there for number 5. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about successors and predecessors again. So before you saw me say insert task, insert successor. I'm just going to insert a task here. This is going to be a successor task. And it's going to be 5 days and 8 hours. And I really want this to happen after task number 3. So there is a field here called pred by number and predecessors. So you can insert tasks by the predecessor by putting the number in here like this. If I want it to happen after configure workspace, and then you can say, I want it to also happen after number 5. So I basically put 2 predecessors in there by using the pred by number. And now those 2 predecessors are in there. And this is something, if you're familiar with Microsoft Project, that's one of the things that Microsoft Project does is by number. If I want to create another successor tasks, there's another way to do successors is you can just click edit predecessors. There's another way to do it with edit predecessors. Now you'll note here there's a task project. This is a cross project dependency. In this case, I want to choose a predecessor in my own project, but you can actually do a cross project dependency. In this case, I'm going to pick configure workspace, and I also want to configure um, the successor task. So this is another way to do predecessors. You can also put in different kinds of relationships. These are the most common is finish to start, but another really common one is start to start. So that means these two will start together. All of these tasks will start at the same time. And you can even put lag or lead time on it. One lag time means it'll start a day late after if I do this finish to start, it'll start a day late after here. Um, and then I'm going to go ahead and click save. So that's predecessors there. I know I'm running short on time, but you can see too, there's notation in here for the predecessors. So 3 + 1, like that number, these tasks there, I can click on here and see them. If I double click here, I can then take that, I can actually take out that +1 day. And then I can also use the notation that's like Microsoft Project, SS, start to start, F, F or finish to finish, or but the common way is the start to finish, just putting the number in without any notation will do that. I mentioned earlier about the ratios for these duration to hours. On any project, you can go into the task defaults, and you'll notice here there's a way to say auto populate duration from work. If you don't want that on at all, you can turn it off, but you can say, I want it to be 2 hours per day here. And I'm just going to go ahead and save that. And now if I come in and make a new task and I put in 2 days, it's going to only calculate the 4 hours. So this is pretty useful for, you know, if you have a nice ratio of how many days and hours you want to do, you can set those settings there. Um, I'm looking up some questions there. Looks like I don't see any. I think I covered all the questions that are already up in the chat, but a couple other things that are really handy when you're editing a task, you can also click on here to see uh, to choose like constraint types and some other milestones and other things like that. I find this really nice too, is we have this milestone column, and you can actually just click on a column to make it a milestone or not. So you'll notice that as well, is that there's an option here to just throw the milestone in, and if I want to move that over to here, I can do that, and now I can very easily turn milestones on and off that way. Also, please, I didn't really get into this, but there is a bulk editor. So if I need to change, let's say I want to change the duration of all of these tasks, or change the owner of these 3 tasks. There's nobody on here. I can right mouse click in here. I can bulk edit and say I want the task owner to be Steve West. And now it just updated those 3 tasks all at once with the bulk editor. So that's another feature that you really should be paying attention to. If you do a lot of editing, there's a way to also just add an assignment and remove an assignment. You can do that as well. So go ahead and play around with those things. And I mentioned also constraints here that I'm going to set a constraint manually. Then I'm going to set it to here on this task there. You can actually go into the more here and say, I want to move all the constraints. So anything with a constraint, if I want to shift it by 5 days or weeks or months. So this is some of our clients do have fixed dates for things, and they can like move the project a whole year in advance that way. One last feature I want to talk about today, I know I'm running really low on time now, is we also, if you're using the capacity. Sorry about that. My sound just went out on my headset. Can you hear me? Okay. One last thing I want to share with you guys is the when you're if you there's a way to see the capacity. If I click, one thing that's kind of important too is if I click on the resources, it will go right into edit mode straight away. And in this case, I want to see my resources, my multiple resources. I can add more people this way here. If I want to show the capacity, I can see the capacity here and even suggest an alternative resource for this. If I pick that person, it'll swap that person out. So this is how you can edit multiple resources on the task here as well. So please note that you can come in here and then do 20 hours. And also you'll note too, when you do add people, there's an option there to have some automatic calculation. I just changed it manually, but I can also do add in a person and change, and then I can say I want to divide everything evenly this way, and now it just gave everybody 24 hours. So there's some features here as well to look into. And we definitely should have another one of these tricks and trips. I covered as quite a bit of ground today as quickly as possible. But if you have any more questions, please reach out to support or your customer success manager, and we'll be more than happy to keep helping you guys. Thank you very much.